All right, good afternoon. Today is September 14th, 2016. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Public Safety, Civil Rights, and Emergency Management Committee. With me today are Council Members Palmisano, Gordon, Quincy, and Council President Johnson, and I believe Councilmember Reich may be joining us in a little while. If not, he's probably on an important business for the city. So we have a quorum of the council committee, and we can conduct the business. Council members, today we have 8 items on the agenda. 6 of them are consent items, and 2 are discussion items. And I will read the consent items, and we will dispose of those before we get to the discussion items. The first item is a travel expense donation acceptance from Major Cities Chiefs Association. The second item is a contract amendment with Minneapolis Public Housing Authority for security services. The third item is a contract amendment with Hennepin County for operation of detox van. Fourth item is a joint powers agreement between the state of Minnesota, Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, and the Minneapolis Emergency Communications Center. Fifth item is a contract amendment with Stillwater Emergency Management for Federal Homeland Security Grant Management Services. The sixth item is a travel expense donation acceptance from the Center for Law and Social Policy. And the 2 other discussion items are a contract compliance division second quarter report, and the 8th item is a crime scene cleanup report. And so, council members, for the 6 consent items, anybody have any questions or anybody want to raise? Council member or Council President Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On item 5, does that, and I apologize for not reading the report, is that a contract with the City of Stillwater Emergency Management? Do we know?
Yeah, Council President, I believe that is not with the City of Stillwater, although I could be wrong about that, and I can check with
Okay.
emergency management afterwards.
Okay, just get back to me before I come to
Okay,
the meeting then.
thank you. All right, any other questions related to the consent items? All right, seeing none, I will move all consent items for approval. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. All right, 7th item is a discussion item, and it is for Contract Compliance Division second quarter report. And we have, please come on up and introduce yourself, and if you can take about 5 minutes for the report, that'd be wonderful.
Good afternoon, Chair, Yang, and committee members. My name is Kalupe, and I am the Director of the Contract Compliance Division of the Minneapolis Department of Civil Rights. Today, I will be presenting the 2016 second quarter report. The Contract Compliance Division ensures inclusion of women, minorities, and low-income communities on city projects and contracts. We also ensure construction workers are paid fairly. The following is a summary of the contract compliance activities through June of 2016. One of the 5 program areas monitored by the Contract Compliance Division is Minority and Women Business Inclusion through the city's Small and Underutilized Business Program, better known as SUBP. We reviewed 73 contracts and projects for inclusion. Goals were included about 36 out of the 73 projects. We also reviewed 15 contractors' good faith efforts, of which 2 contractors were denied and were not awarded the contract. We also worked with 8 women and minority businesses to be certified in the Federal Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program. Currently, the overall participation for women and minority businesses on city projects are 4% minority businesses and 4% women businesses. This is roughly $5.9 million out of $68.9 million in city construction contracts. And for workforce inclusion, participation on city projects remains around 4% female and 22% minority. And just a quick note on other compliance activities include 121 affirmative action plans reviewed, 59 Section 3 residents and businesses have been added to the city's HUD Section 3 program, and roughly $54,000 in restitution has been recovered and paid to construction workers. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to stand for questions.
Council members, anyone have any questions? All right, seeing none, thank you so much for the
Thank you.
presentation. And with this item, it's a receive and file item, so I will move that we receive and file this item. Any discussion on that? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. And we will move on to the 8th item, which is crime scene cleanup report. And reporting for us today is Chief Tyner, right? Oh, and DC Falcons as well. Yes. So please come on up. I will just do a brief introduction, and then we can kind of go with this. So this issue has just come up recently, but I mean, it's been an issue for a long time. And this is an issue that, has, caught my attention just because, a lot of the crime scene related issues, have happened on the north side specifically. And so, wanted to bring the MPD and the MFD into a committee to just, present on, what is going to happen going forward and to see if we can improve the way we do crime scene cleanup for the future. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Council Chair. Council Chair and Council members, the Minneapolis Police Department, when called to respond to a crime scene and start to evaluate the crime scene for an investigative process, part of that will identify, if there's any biohazards within that crime scene. The Minneapolis Police Department has had a longstanding policy where the Minneapolis Police Department is responsible for cleaning up the non-biohazard aspects of a crime scene, such as crime scene tape and other items that are left behind in a typical crime scene. If there's a biohazard, the Minneapolis Police Department, as far back as I can remember, has had a great working partnership with the Minneapolis Fire Department, where a supervisor at the crime scene or the highest ranking officer at a crime scene, if there's no detectives out at the crime scene, calls emergency communications and requests a fire department response, who then come out and mitigate that problem for us. So, Chief?
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee. So once we get the call on the fire end, and actually our procedure is called a trauma scene cleanup because oftentimes we have to clean up bodily fluids for victims that weren't necessarily victims of a crime. But once we get caught up, we report to the police incident commander or whoever's in charge to make sure that the scene is ready to be cleaned up, that they're done processing the scene and collecting evidence and all of those things so that we're not cleaning it up prematurely. Next, we try to restrict public access to the area as much as possible, put on our proper protective equipment. If it just requires a simple wash down with water, we use our hose lines to wash it down. But we've also added an element, and this is new to the policy. We've added bleach and scrub brushes and items that we can use to do a more thorough cleaning so that going forward, we won't have these incidences of a blood drop left here or there. Really, that's pretty much the policy. So we'll come out, we'll make sure that the crime scene is ready to be cleaned, and by adding in the additional equipment of bleach and the scrub brushes, we think we'll be able to do a much better job of cleaning up these scenes.
Okay, and Chiefs, I'm going to make the unusual move of allowing a person from the public to come and talk, but we will ask you questions after that, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so if you can just, have a seat. Philip Murphy contacted me, wants to, have his 3 minutes to address us, and so here he is, and he's going to address us. Then you can address his questions, and you can also address our questions once we're done. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Yang.
This crime scene cleanup has been an issue since Sarah Goodenow became Barb Johnson's assistant. It's been 15 years or more that I've been calling with concerns over remediating crime scenes. It's been a very long time. This is nothing new. My breaking point came when I was standing on the corner of 31st and Colfax Sunday at 6:30. It looked like red molasses where our murder victim fell at 15 minutes into Sunday morning. He was shot 6 times. Nobody thought from this side, MPD, to call this side, MFD, to do the work. Now, we had a similar circumstance when the mother of 3 was gunned down. She fell out and died at 30th and Newton. And I was there to hold down that corner, again with KG Wilson, hours after. It was the next day, actually, after she died. Well, nobody cleaned up that crime scene either. I walked to the fire station, rang the doorbell. Fire, this side. I invited that battalion fire chief that was on duty to come and clean that crime scene. They did. They were there. They got there within 2 or 3 minutes. They took care of the work. This responsibility shouldn't fall on civilians, people that have the misfortune of being at those scenes to make the observations. Last fall, there was a particularly tragic event, fellow shot in the head. Well, we know what's in our heads, okay? I don't need to explain further, but it was a particularly gruesome crime scene. This side. Fire was there. They used their hose, but they hosed what was inside of the fellow's skull up onto that property's cedar fence into their lawn and down the block. They left, and I took pictures of that particularly grisly aftermath after they cleared the scene. They rolled away. And while Channel 11 was out in all the media to show what I'm calling failed policy. Now, I don't know if you guys realize this, but the only attention given to crime scene cleanup is on this side. It's in the police procedure manual. And I've talked to our city attorney, and he tells me, well, it's not policy, Phil, it's guidance. So I would ask all of you to talk to the city attorney and find out why this side isn't connecting to this side. Well, it's because there is no policy. There is no protocol. And that task falls on the square shoulders of the people in this public safety committee. Then you have to bring that forward to the city council and develop a protocol. Now, based on my observations over 15 years, failure is just kind of the status quo where, for a variety of reasons, this side, fire department side, well, they're out here and they'll candidly tell me, Phil, we're not equipped to do this work. We're worried about blood-borne pathogens getting into our eyes. We can't pick this up. The fire department, our fire crews, well, their training doesn't include, coming out there in hazmat suits to pick up our crime victims, which sometimes are literally splattered from people standing on top of them, shooting them, and their body parts are drilled into the blacktop pavement, sidewalks, people's grassy boulevards. And this side, they don't have the tools to pick them up.
Mr. Murphy, can you wrap it up?
Well, I believe crime scene cleanup should be contracted out to private enterprise and added to the cost of affordable living in North Minneapolis. And now I'll say, this isn't just a North Minneapolis problem. I've been downtown twice this summer, once after shooting and once after stabbing. Well, the same problem exists downtown. One fellow was sitting at a bus stop and I asked him if he knew what the red globular content was on the sidewalk at the bus stop, kitty corner from the Fifth Rail Transit Station. I told him a woman was stabbed right here and this is part of her. Well, he got up and he became nauseous and he walked over to the parking lot fence and he threw up. And that was downtown. And now there's another stabbing in the Augie's parking lot where the police precinct is back in there. Well, there was a bunch of blood back there. And that was days later. So it's not just a North Minneapolis problem. This is a city problem. And it has to be addressed. It has to be addressed. You guys have to enact a protocol a procedure where it comes before council and it's put into the vernacular of the city where, oh gee, well, there's a problem. The police then have a policy to follow, not guidance in their handbook, a policy. And maybe not. Maybe it includes the fire department, but I believe it should be let to private contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Chiefs, if you want to respond to that, and then we can ask some other questions.
Yeah, thank you, Council Chair. We do have a policy, and it's codified in the Minneapolis Police Department's Policy and Procedure Manual 7-2009, excuse me. Waste and medical debris used at crime scene and traffic accidents is the heading of that policy. In that policy, it dictates that when we see this biohazard or blood and bodily fluids at a crime scene, that we notify the Minneapolis Fire Department, and that is by the supervisor on scene or the ranking officer at the scene. So it is codified in our policy that when we see it, that we're to notify the fire department to help remediate that problem.
Okay, and DC Vulcans, there was a controversy this weekend over, what happened at about 30th or 31st in Colfax there. I know that, just yesterday you were at the scene, and can you kind of just walk us through what happened, let's say, from Saturday when the shooting happened to the crime scene cleanup, a couple of times in between where fire came in to clean up the scene, and then lastly when you got there just yesterday?
Okay. First of all, the crime scene entailed a victim that was shot in the head and landed in one spot. There was blood matter that needed to be cleaned up. The officers called the fire department to come out and remediate that problem. What I spoke to our investigators who the following day arrived at the crime scene, they commented they knew that the scene had been washed down by the fire department because the street was still wet at the time when they got there to do a secondary walkthrough of the crime scene. When I received comment from your office about that there was still blood matter up at that scene, I went up to the scene to see for myself what the extent of the problem was, and so that I could have a better understanding what it was. And what was pointed out to me by Mr. Murphy was several stains within the curb line, the sewer curb line of the west side of the street, and there was several different stainings along that curb line. Knowing from what I know of the incident of the crime, that I surmised to myself that the pattern of that staining is a product of the washdown, that it was flowed with the water and just settled before you could see it. And when the water is wet in the time of night out there, when it's wet, I can foresee why it was still there. Like I said, the next day when the street was still wet, my detectives said that they didn't see any blood when they were out there doing a recanvass of the crime scene.
In DC Vulcans, in situations like that, MPD is responsible for the cleanup. You guys don't actually do the cleanup, but you're responsible for the scene to be cleaned at the.
Our responsibility is that we work with our city partners in the fire department, contact them, and they come out and remediate the crime scene per their protocols.
Since I'm not seeing anybody put their things up, I just wanted to ask, there is this alternative idea that, we should contract out companies that do that. Why are we not doing that?
Like I said before, Council Chair, but like I said before, was that since I spent 12 years in the homicide unit as an investigator also, and as far back as I can remember working with the Minneapolis Fire Department to do crime scene remediation, I was never aware of as an investigator or in my role as a commander of this problem. This is the first time I've ever heard of a problem with the crime scenes not being cleaned up adequately. And I've always known that with the fire department, they've been really responsive in the past if they need to come back out to do further cleaning, that they always do. I think we've had a great working relationship with the fire department to serve the citizens of Minneapolis in this issue.
Chief Tyner, with regards to the fire department, I mean, are you all equipped with the necessary tools to clean up these crime scenes?
Yes, I think we are now. Like I mentioned earlier, most of it is done with the hose line. You know, it's a high pressure hose line. We've added bleach and scrub brushes to augment that hose line. So I don't think there's much more than that that would be required to clean up one of these type of scenes. We also do have bio bags on hand in case there is any body parts or anything left behind accidentally. Normally, I know the ME would pick those things up, but we also have the ability to pick that type of stuff up and deliver it to the ME's office.
And Chief Tyner, yesterday in the news, they had talked about how future, I guess, fire trucks are going to be equipped with this sort of equipment in the trucks going forward. Is that correct? Could you kind of explain that a little bit?
That is correct. So we've put together a cleanup kit that we're actually putting out into the fire stations right now to augment just using the hose line as we've done in the past. It includes a 5-gallon bucket. It includes a gallon of bleach. It includes a spray bottle, which we create a solution, a bleach and water solution. And it also includes the scrub brushes that I've mentioned with the long handle that can be removed to either, you know, clean street or if we need to clean something a little higher. So that is what's been put on the rigs. Those started going out on the rigs Monday. We generally get our supplies out a district per day. We have 5 districts, take 5 days. We're in day number, what's today, Wednesday, 3. So by Friday, every rig will be equipped with that equipment.
And let me ask you about just future protocol. I mean, you know, if somebody on that scene sees that there's still some blood there, what's the best thing to do? Should they call 911? Should they call the police department? Should they call the fire department to come and clean it up?
Well, I would say if police have already left the scene, then they might as well just call 911 and get the fire department out there. We're the ones that's going to actually end up going out there and cleaning the scene. Our main concern is that the police are done processing the scene. Once they've left, I know that they're done processing the scene.
Okay. All right. Council members, any other questions? Council President Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief Tyner, there's a lot of misinformation that's going on about this particular issue. And would you please remind us that our firefighters are fully equipped and trained to deal with biohazards?
Yes, I should have, I'm sorry to cut you off. I should have responded to that. So first of all, it was said that we don't have a policy. We do now. That's what we're here to talk about today. I think it's in front of you. Second of all, we are equipped to deal with body substance isolations. We deal with it every day as part of our medical practices, and it's no different for cleaning up blood that has been spilled in the street versus blood that is actually on a person that we're treating. So we do have equipment. We have gloves. We have equipment to cover our bodies. We have goggles to cover our eyes. We have all of those things already in place.
Thank you. The other question I have, the other misinformation that's out there, some people have said we shouldn't wash into the streets, that this shouldn't be going into the storm drains, and that is incorrect as well.
That is incorrect. If you look at it from a scientific standpoint, bodily fluids are composed mostly of water. That includes blood, that includes spinal fluid, all the other fluids in our body. When you're washing down a quart or less, or even a couple of quarts of blood into a storm drawer that has tens of thousands of gallons of water flowing through it, it's not going to have any adverse effect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council members, any other questions? Chief Tyner, can I just ask another question? This idea of like contracting out a company to do crime scene cleanup. I've heard a rumor about in the past how some firefighters have worked on those crime scene cleanups teams as well. So I mean, essentially, whether they're working outside or inside the fire department, I mean, you guys are the ones that are cleaning these crime scenes. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. The outdoor crime scenes, indoor crime scenes are cleaned by companies. I'm not sure if the city hires those companies or not, but we only do the outdoor trauma scenes, I should say.
Okay. And, can I just ask, I mean, MPD has talked about how they've had a policy for years and years. And, I guess, at this point, why does the fire department need to have a policy in place as well?
I think it's just for clarity um, more than anything. We've been doing it for so long. I've been here 22 years. We've been doing this the whole time I've been here. I'm sure we've been doing it long before I got here. We've always done it kind of as a courtesy to our partners. Um, and so I think really, yeah, like I said, the policy is really in place to just create clarity and have something in writing so that if there's any question as to what the policy is going to be, then everybody knows. A lot of the policy has more to do with not the actual method of cleaning, but of the procedure of how we get notified and how we proceed.
Okay. And I have a question for the city attorney, Mr. Osborne. There's been this, I guess, myth out there that these guidelines or policies that we have, whether in MPD or whether it's in the firefighters, it's not good. It doesn't have any real impact, or it's not as strong as law. Can you explain, in terms of guidelines or policies, I mean, what type of force they have?
Well, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, that's what a policy is guidance to the department whose policy it is on how to address a certain situation. No policy is followed 100% of the time, or very few are anyway, but the policy exists to let the public know this is how we aim to address this particular issue. And a policy is guidance. I mean, those two things are not inconsistent with each other.
Thank you. And Chief Tyner, just one last thing. I saw in the news you said something to the effect of you hope that this type of thing never happens again. Is that pretty much what you believe is going to happen going forward? And obviously, we're humans. We're going to make some mistakes. We're going to forget some things, or some things are going to happen, such as what DC Falcons talked about in terms of sometimes there's going to be a runoff that just creates certain specks here and there. But for the most part, I mean, we're doing the best we can, right?
Yes, I would say that I stick by that statement. I think this policy, along with the addition of the additional equipment, will give us a better ability to clean up these scenes. But as Commander Falcons or Deputy Chief Falcons, excuse me, no worries. Deputy Chief Falcons mentioned earlier, sometimes when it's the middle of the night, you might miss a spot here or there, but we're always willing to come out and correct that if need be. But I think the addition of this equipment will give us the ability to do a much better job going forward.
Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the sensitivity of cleaning up crime scenes for all the ways that we've discussed it. There's a lot of healing for the community that needs to take place after something like that. I'm curious about just the health issue itself of different things that aren't crime scenes. Whose responsibility is it when there is bodily fluids, blood, or something else in the public right of way? Is that a general, can residents call to request that Public Works come and clean up something, or does the fire department always need to come to these kinds of scenes? My specific example is walking my son to his first day of school and taking a particular nasty spill myself that involved a lot of blood and ultimately stitches. Whose responsibility is that to clean up the sidewalk in front of that house that's way too far away for me to pull a bucket of water out from my own house to go clean it up, but yet I respect that, those are my bodily fluids on the sidewalk.
Sure, so
How
that's
would
a
I
great
get that
question.
taken?
Well, if it involves bodily fluids and you put a call in for service, we're probably going to be the ones to get the call. As I've seen, we clean up many trauma scenes, such as what you described, car accidents, other industrial accidents, things like that. The reason that is because, as I mentioned earlier, we do have the protective equipment to protect us from body substances and as opposed to Public Works who does not. So in a instance like that, if you were to call 911 or probably even 311, but we would be notified and we would be the ones to respond to that.
Thank you.
Right. Do we have any other questions, council members? All right, seeing none, I will, this is a receive and file item, and so I will just move to receive and file this item. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. And with that, we have disposed of our business, so we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
What about